The outcast, my name is Caleb Sterling, and I was born carrying the weight of a karmic debt left behind by an ancestor who slaughtered 1,000,000 souls. This curse, like a cosmic mark of Cain, turned me from a prodigy into a pariah. I was spat upon by my family, publicly dumped by my fiancée, and treated like a walking plague. What they didn't know was that in the forbidden penance yard where they exiled me, I mastered the world's only forbidden art, karmic grafting. From then on, my curse became my enemy's nightmare. Every blow they struck against me would be returned with interest, paid in full by ancient, catastrophic judgment. My name is Caleb Sterling, and I was born a debtor to the universe. Most people come into this world to collect. I came to pay. My ancestor, Silas Sterling, was a ruthless titan who once held the world in his palm. One man, one blade, 1,000,000 dead. He built the Sterling dynasty's centuries of glory on a foundation of bones. But he left us, his descendants, a blood tab that could never be cleared. The karmic debt. You couldn't see it or touch it, but it was like a cancer in the bloodline. By the time it got to me, maybe the family luck finally ran dry, because centuries of accumulated sin crashed down solely on my head. On my 16th birthday, during the awakening ceremony, the light on the assessment stone didn't shoot into the sky. Instead, it curdled into a ball of suffocating, ink-black darkness. The family elders turned pale, one whispering the death sentence, child of scorn. From that day on, I went from the Sterling family's golden boy to a jinx everyone avoided. My cultivation stalled, bad luck followed me like a shadow, and the world opened its arms to crush me. Today, that malice reached its peak. The Sterling Great Hall was packed. I stood in the center like a convict, surrounded by the sneering, gloating faces of my kin. In the seat of honor sat Elder Thorn of the Celestia Order. Beside him stood a girl in a white dress, radiating a cold, untouchable aura. Evelyn Frost, my fiancée, where she used to be. Elder Thorn held a teacup, skimming the froth with the lid, not even deigning to look at me. His voice was soft, but carried to every corner of the hall. Patriarch Sterling, I am here today to sever a tie. Evelyn is a once-in-a-century prodigy of the Celestia Order. She is destined to inherit the mantle of the Saintess. Her partner must be a dragon among men, with a clean lineage and rising fortune. He paused, finally letting his gaze drift to me, looking at me like I was a bag of rotting trash. Not a source of calamity, wrapped in sin and rejected by the heavens. Source of calamity. Those 3 words were like red-hot nails driven into my ears. My father, Victor Sterling, the patriarch, turned a shade of purple, forcing a smile. Elder Thorn, this engagement was set years ago. This breaks the rules, doesn't it? Rules? Thorn sneered, slamming the teacup down hard enough to make my father flinch as hot tea splashed him. The future of the Celestia Order is the rule. Letting Evelyn marry this cursed wretch. Do you want my order to be tainted by his endless bad karma and sever our own legacy? His voice rose to a shout. Victor Sterling, what are you trying to pull? My father broke into a cold sweat, silenced. The guests whispered, their eyes filled with pity and mockery. I remained silent, looking up at Evelyn. She was beautiful, like a pristine snow lotus. From start to finish, she hadn't looked at me for a second, staring blankly ahead as if none of this concerned her. I knew she was waiting for me to speak, waiting for me, the calamity, to voluntarily step out of her bright future. I clenched my fists, nails digging into my palms, but felt no pain. My heart felt like it was being squeezed by an invisible hand, making it hard to breathe. Humiliation drowned me like a tide. Finally, Evelyn seemed to lose patience. She turned, looking me in the eye for the first time. The eyes that once held affection now held only icy distance. Caleb, she said, her voice as cold as her demeanor. We are from different worlds. We were before, and we certainly are now. Let me go, and let yourself go. Let her go. Let myself go. Sounded nice. I laughed, my chest heaving, the sound raspy like broken bellows. Ha ha, different worlds, is it? I stopped laughing and stared her down. Evelyn Frost, remember this. Today, the Celestia Order isn't breaking the engagement. I, Caleb Sterling, am divorcing you. I ripped the Dragon Phoenix jade pendant from my waist, my mother's relic, something I treasured more than life, and smashed it onto the floor with all my strength. Crack! The jade shattered, just like my heart. Dead silence filled the hall. Elder Thorn's face went dark enough to drip ink. You insolent brat. You chose death. A massive wave of pressure crushed down on me. My legs buckled, and I tasted iron, spitting a mouthful of blood. But I stood straight, like a spear that would break before it bent, roaring with my last ounce of strength. The wheel turns for everyone. Don't kick a man when he's down, because when he gets up, he remembers. The insult today, I, Caleb Sterling, will etch into my bones. When we meet again, I will return it 100-fold. With that, my body gave out. Darkness took me, and I collapsed stiffly. My last thought before the coma was that the line sounded pretty damn cool. Too bad for a guy predicted to die before 30. When we meet again felt like a very long time away. The penance yard didn't die. When I woke up, I wished I had. I had been exiled to the penance yard, the family's forbidden zone and its pillar of shame. Black monoliths jutted into the sky, unwritten but reeking of gore and resentment. Each totem represented a heinous sin committed by my ancestors. My task was to reflect here until I rotted. They didn't even assign a guard because everyone knew the ambient karma in the forbidden ground was lethal poison to normal people. And I, the child of scorn, was a human magnet. The bad karma gravitated toward me automatically. Throwing me here was no different from executing me, except they could claim the moral high ground of allowing me self-repentance. I lay on the cold ground, feeling wisps of black energy seep from the monoliths into my body. There were like a million ants chewing on my nerves and soul. My body grew colder, my consciousness fading. Was this it? Fine. Better to die clean than live in humiliation. I closed my eyes, waiting for the end. Then a bone-grinding crunch echoed nearby. I forced my eyes open. A monster, half the height of a man, was crawling out of a monolith shadow. It looked like a skinned wolf, muscles knotted and oozing black slime. Its eyes were empty sockets burning with green ghost fire. A gloom stalker, a beast born of the concentrated sin in this place, mindless and hungry for living flesh. It spotted me. The hollow sockets turned my way, and it let out a low growl, drool sizzling where it hit the ground. I smiled bitterly. The universe really wanted me dead. I didn't have the strength to lift a finger, forced to watch it approach step by step. The stench of death hit my face. I wasn't resigned. Why? Why must I pay for the sins of my ancestors? Why could Evelyn Frost sit high above while I died here like a dog? I refused. A violent will to survive and a tidal wave of resentment exploded in my chest. Just as the stalker's claws were about to pierce my chest, I instinctively reached out and slapped my hand onto the nearest sin totem. The stone was bone-chillingly cold, scarred with axe marks. The moment my palm touched it, something changed. The black karmic rot inside me seemed to find a vent, rushing madly toward my hand. And the totem seemed to come alive, vibrating violently as a massive, ancient, pure wave of slaughter karma poured down my arm and into my body. I felt like a balloon inflated to its limit, ready to burst. Two different types of negative energy crashed into each other in my veins. The pain was beyond torture. My consciousness tore, my soul screamed. Just as I was about to break, an absurd thought flashed through my mind. Since all this bad karma wanted a host, why couldn't it be that thing? My eyes locked onto the beast lunging at my face. The moment the thought formed, it was unstoppable. As if guided by instinct deep in my bloodline, I forcibly redirected the violent, foreign slaughter karma, aiming it at the stalker. Get the hell out! I roared with my last shred of sanity. It felt like a farmer who'd seen drought for half a life suddenly learning to dig a trench, diverting the flood, drowning him into his neighbor's field. A nearly invisible black thread shot from my fingertip, connecting perfectly to the stalker. I called this process grafting. The next second, a miracle happened. The massive slaughter karma, rampaging inside me, found its new target and surged along the black thread into the beast. Roar? The monster froze. Confusion flickered in its empty sockets. It didn't understand why this weak human had suddenly become so spicy. Before it could process, its body began to warp. The black energy expanded wildly inside it. Its skin ballooned, surfacing with countless twisted, screaming faces. It couldn't handle it. This was the killing intent of Silas Sterling, who murdered 1,000,000. How could a mere gloomstalker bear such massive causality? Boom! A muffled explosion. The beast didn't even have time to scream before it detonated from the inside out, turning into a cloud of pure ash that vanished in the wind. As if it never existed. I stayed there, hand outstretched, staring blankly. The tearing pain in my body was gone, replaced by an unprecedented lightness. Though physically weak, the sensation of carrying a 10,000-pound weight, the feeling of being rejected by the world, had vanished. Did I succeed? I had grafted the karma meant for me onto the beast, letting it take the backlash. I looked at my hand, then at the silent totem. A crazy, bold plan formed in my mind. They said I was the source of calamity, the child of scorn. Fine. Starting today, I would gift this scorn to anyone who wanted me dead. The lethal gift. I stayed in the penance yard for 3 days. I didn't eat or drink, yet felt no hunger. The dense karma here was no longer poison. It was ammunition. I practiced the karmic grafting technique repeatedly. I discovered I could not only graft the energy from the totems, but also peel off strips of my own congenital cursed debt and attach them to rocks or dead trees. The cost was that whatever received the graft would disintegrate into dust instantly. It was a forbidden power, a magic that toyed with cause and effect. I became proficient, controlling the type and quantity of the graft. A wisp of resentment made a rock sprout moss instantly. A thread of slaughter shattered it. My ancestor had left me an inexhaustible arsenal of bad luck, and I was the sole arms dealer. On the 4th day, someone came. It was Carter, the son of the steward, Marcus, a rat-faced man who used his father's influence to bully others. When I fell from grace, he was the first to kick me. He carried a food box, wearing a fake, sneering smile as he approached. Well, young Master Caleb, you're still breathing? He tossed the box onto the ground, spilling the rice and stew into the dirt. Brought you some chow. TSK, look at you. Still useless. Can't even catch a meal. I sat cross-legged, not even lifting my eyelids. Say your piece and get out. Carter's smile froze, then turned savage. Caleb, you think you're still the genius heir? You're a dog thrown in the pound. I came today to see exactly how a dog dies. He stepped closer, pulling a dagger from his jacket, eyes gleaming with cruelty. The patriarch said to let you rot. But if you accidentally got eaten by a stalker, well, nobody could blame anyone, right? I finally opened my eyes, looking at him calmly. You want to kill me? So what if I do? Carter grinned. Killing a jinx like you is a public service. The elders might even toss me a few pills as a reward. He thought I was still the defenseless cripple. He didn't know that the moment he stepped into this yard, his life was already mine. I looked at him like he was already dead. I heard you've been trying to break through to Tier 7 conduit status, but hit a bottleneck? I asked suddenly. Carter paused, then puffed up his chest. At least you have eyes. Once I break through, I'm an inner circle disciple, and you'll just be bones in the dirt. Is that right? The corner of my mouth lifted slightly. I have a resonance pill. Might help you out. I pulled a plain pill from my pocket. It was leftover junk from before my exile. Carter's breathing hitched. He stared at the pill with greed and suspicion. You be that nice? I can't use it. Waste not, want not. I tossed the pill in the air, casually. We grew up together, sort of. Hate to see you stuck. But if you don't want it, I moved to put away. Wait. Carter panicked and snatched the pill. He checked it thoroughly. No poison. He looked at me, skeptical. What's your angle? I told you. Helping out. I smiled, harmless as a saint. He never suspected that I had grafted a sliver of karma onto the pill without him noticing. It was stripped from a totem representing deceit and betrayal. This karma wouldn't kill directly, but would twist reality and amplify consequences. Carter hesitated, but couldn't resist the temptation of power. He glared at me. Caleb, once I break through, I'll finish you off. He sat down immediately, swallowed the pill, and began to meditate. I watched silently. The pill dissolved, energy spreading. Joy flashed on Carter's face. He felt the bottleneck loosening. He channeled his energy to break the barrier. However, he didn't notice the black thread of karma blending into his like a mastercon artist, misdirecting his internal energy flow into a dangerous, dead-end detour. Because of the deceit karma, he felt nothing wrong. In fact, he felt like he was on the highway to success. Almost there, he thought wildly. Then, splurt, Carter violently sprayed a mouthful of black blood. His eyes bulged like copper bells, filled with terrified disbelief. His internal energy went rogue, stampeding through his fragile veins like wild horses. No, how? He wanted to scream for help, but couldn't speak. The agony of snapping veins made him convulse and foam at the mouth. Finally, his head lolled to the side. Silence. His breath remained, but his eyes were vacant, drool leaking from his slack jaw. Psychotic break. Total neural collapse. He was a vegetable. I stood up, picked up his dagger, and lightly cut his neck. Theater required commitment. An hour later, Steward Marcus rushed in with men, finding his son's corpse surrounded by gloomstalker tracks. Everyone concluded Carter tried to kill me, but got unlucky and was mauled by a monster. No one suspected me. How could a powerless cripple kill a nearly tier 7 cultivator? I watched Marcus howl over his son's body, my heart ice cold. This was just the start. Everyone who bullied me, humiliated me, or wanted me dead would receive their cosmic judgment, hand-delivered by me. The Trials Carter's death caused a small ripple in the family, but it faded quickly. A servant's son died, no big deal. The fact that he died trying to cleanse the family made him a joke and solidified my reputation as a walking curse. They said anyone who got close to me got burned. I didn't care. I stayed in the penance yard, absorbing and cataloging the sins. I found the totems were an encyclopedia of misery. Deceit from ancestors who broke oaths, greed from murder robberies, slaughter from massacres, even curse from failed dark rituals. I was a sponge, soaking up knowledge that would drive normal men insane. A month later, the annual family trial began. By rule, all Sterling youths had to participate. As the exiled sinner, I was graciously permitted to attend. I knew they just wanted to drag me out for another public shaming to show off the family's impartiality. On the day of the trials, I walked onto the arena wearing washed-out rags. My appearance drew gazes of scorn, pity, and schadenfreude. He actually came? Isn't he supposed to be rotting? Heard the elders allowed it, so he can see the gap between him and us. Sad. The former genius can't even beat a servant now. The gossip buzzed like flies. My ex-fiancée, Evelyn Frost, was there too. As the representative of the Celestia Order, she sat high in the VIP box next to Elder Thorn, looking down on us mortals. Her gaze swept over me without pausing, as if I were dust. I kept a poker face, but inside I was sneering. Showtime. The draw came up. My first opponent, Hunter Sterling. The family's rising star, Tier 8 conduit, and the loudest voice calling for my expulsion back then. Perfect. When I stepped into the ring, the crowd laughed. Hunter, don't kill him. It's bad luck to touch the jinx. One move. I bet Hunter drops him in one move. Hunter stood opposite me, arrogant, speaking like he was doing charity. Caleb, for the sake of blood ties, kneel and forfeit. I'll let you walk off with some dignity. I cracked my neck. You talk too much. Hunter's face darkened. Ungrateful trash. Today I'll do heaven a favor and cripple you for good. He roared, launching himself like a cannonball. He punched, the air screaming with heat. Inferno strike. Hunter mastered the Inferno strike, someone shouted. Everyone expected my bones to snap. I stood still. Just as Hunter's fist was inches from my face, I raised my hand. I didn't block or dodge. I simply extended my index finger and tapped the red glowing magical gauntlet on his fist. Wrapped around my fingertip was a microscopic, hair-thin thread of black energy. Slaughter karma, the purest, most primal intent to kill, stripped from the million death totem. It wasn't enough to trigger a cosmic backlash, but it was enough to corrupt an object. The moment I touched the gauntlet, Hunter's grin froze. He felt his fist punch into a void of chaos. All his power, all his kinetic energy, was instantly swallowed and corrupted by something unspeakable. Crack! A hairline fracture appeared on his expensive basalt gauntlet. Then it spiderwebbed. No! Hunter shrieked. Boom! The gauntlet exploded, shrapnel flying. An invisible, destructive backlash surged up his arm and into his body. Splack! Hunter flew backward as if hit by a truck, spraying a fountain of blood before crashing outside the ring, unconscious. One move. The arena went dead silent. Jaws hit the floor. What just happened? Tier 8 Hunter, using a master-level strike, was defeated by the cursed cripple with a finger tap. The whispers died, replaced by sharp intakes of breath. I lowered my hand, standing tall, sweeping my gaze across the crowd. Everyone who met my eyes looked away, sensing something terrifying. Finally, I looked at the VIP box. Elder Thorn's face was grave for the first time. And Evelyn, her eternal ice mask finally cracked. She stared at me, eyes full of shock, confusion, and something complex. They thought it was a fluke, a malfunction in the gauntlet. They didn't know I wielded a power outside their comprehension. I didn't need to fight. I just needed to give a gift of calamity, and my enemies would destroy themselves. I met her gaze and smiled, cold and mocking. See that? This is just the opening act. The offer my one-finger victory over Hunter sent shockwaves through the crowd. In the following matches, no one dared underestimate me, though they couldn't figure out my trick. My next opponent hesitated for a minute, then bowed with shaking hands. I forfeit. Once the dam broke, the flood followed. I breezed into the finals without throwing a punch. The Sterling family fell into a weird silence. Their looks shifted from scorn to awe, and then fear. An incomprehensible strongman is scarier than a visible one. My final opponent stared at me for 3 seconds, turned pale, and jumped off the ring. I, Caleb Sterling, the child of scorn, was the champion. The result was a slap in the face to everyone who had mocked me. My father, Victor, wept with joy, instantly restoring my status as a core heir and promising personal tutelage. I stood in the ring, bathed in glory, feeling nothing. This wasn't what I wanted. Suddenly, Elder Thorne spoke from the VIP box. Patriarch Sterling, congratulations. I didn't know your family hid such a talent. I misjudged. He turned his gaze to me. Caleb, would you be willing to join the Celestia Order? The crowd gasped. The Celestia Order. The top faction for 1,000 miles. People killed to get in. A month ago, they treated me like a virus. Now, they were rolling out the red carpet. Ironic. Before I could speak, Evelyn stood up. Master, you can't. His origins are strange, his methods sinister. He is not righteous. Recruiting him could bring disaster. She still didn't believe in me. She still saw calamity. Thorne waved a hand, giving Evelyn a meaningful look. Evelyn, you're missing the big picture. The boy has karma, yes, but his foundation is solid. He used a technique to deflect force with finesse. Such a diamond in the rough. It would be a waste not to take him. He smiled at me warmly. Caleb, if you wish, I will make you an inner disciple immediately. Your resources will match Evelyn's. It was a huge offer. My father was practically dancing, signaling me to say yes. But I laughed. Thank you for the high praise, Elder Thorne. I looked at him, then at Evelyn. But the Celestia Order standards are too high. A source of calamity like me couldn't possibly climb that high. I rejected him publicly. Thorne's smile froze. Evelyn frowned deeper, looking at me like I was an ungrateful lunatic. The family exploded in whispers, calling me mad. They didn't know I did this just for this moment. To show Evelyn and the Order exactly what they had thrown away. Oof. Ungrateful mutt. The master gives you face and you spit on it. A young man in Celestia Order robes stepped out from behind Thorne. Handsome, but with eyes full of arrogance and shadow. Julian Vane, the top elite of the Order and Evelyn's obsessive suitor. He hated my guts. Ice and greed. Julian walked to the front, looking down at me. You beat a few trash-tier fighters and think you're somebody? To me, you're nothing. He bowed to Thorne. Master, let me spar with him. I'll show him the difference between a fluke and a genius. Thorne paused, then nodded. He was annoyed by my rejection and wanted Julian to humble me. Evelyn opened her mouth to speak, but stopped, watching with complicated eyes. Julian grinned cruelly and leaped into the ring. Tier 9 conduit. 1 step from the Ascension Foundation. His aura was 10 times stronger than Hunter's. Caleb, you think you're tough? Julian cracked his knuckles. Today I'll teach you that trash stays trash. He blurred, rushing me with a palm strike carrying bone-chilling cold. The Celestia Order's signature move, Glacial Palm. A move like a ghost, sliding back meters, barely dodging. Only know how to run. Julian grew angry, attacking faster. The ring became a blur of ice and wind. A move like a leaf in a storm, teetering but never falling. The crowd was stunned. He's so fast. I thought the curse made him sluggish. Up in the box, Thorne frowned. He couldn't read me. Evelyn stared at my feet. She recognized the footwork, the drifting step, a basic Sterling technique. But in my hands, it was elusive, formless. Impossible, she whispered. She didn't know that when you drop a 10,000-pound burden, you naturally float. Julian was getting frustrated. Stop hiding and fight like a man. He roared, thrusting both palms. Dense icicles materialized in midair, shooting toward me like a shotgun blast. Area of effect. Unavoidable. I smirked. Finally, I stopped dodging. I stepped into the attack. My fingers danced in the air, invisible black threads shooting from my tips to latch onto the incoming icicles. I didn't use slaughter time. I used greed. It doesn't kill. It amplifies desire until it consumes the host. I pretended to take a hit to the shoulder, grunting and stumbling back. Huh, you're done. Julian saw blood and laughed maniacally. He gestured, and the missing icicles curved back for a second pass. But then, the anomaly occurred. One icicle, grafted with greed, broke formation. It didn't aim for me. It accelerated and slammed into the icicle next to it. Shatter. It smashed its neighbor and seemed to absorb its energy, growing larger. Julian froze. The chaos spread. The icicles became like a pack of starving wolves, attacking and devouring each other in midair. Crunch. Smash. Within a blink, the swarm was gone, leaving only 3 massive spikes. They pulsed with terrifying cold and hungry, twisted faces. They were out of control. No. Return. Julian went pale, trying to recall the magic. Too late. Corrupted by greed, the spell no longer recognized its master. The three giant spikes paused, then turned, aiming at the only source of immense energy nearby. Their creator, Julian. No! Julian screamed. He tried to dodge, but the spikes tracked him. Boom! An explosion of ice and frost rocked the arena. When the mist cleared, a crater sat in the center. Julian lay at the bottom, broken, bloody, unrecognizable, dead. Silence again. People looked at me like I was a monster. First a finger, now this. Julian died by his own spell. I clutched my injured shoulder, looking pale and weak, offering an apologetic smile to the VIP box. Elder Thorn. Oops. Brother Julian seems to have lost control of his cultivation. I wanted to save him, but I'm too weak. Thorn's face was black as coal. He stared at me with murderous intent. He knew I did it, but he had no proof. Evelyn stood behind him, trembling. She looked at my innocent smile and Julian's corpse, and a chill hit her spine. She finally realized how wrong she was. We weren't from different worlds. In my world, she wasn't even qualified to look up. The Blade Crypt Julian's death destroyed the Order's reputation. Elder Thorn left in a huff with Evelyn and the body, shooting me a look that promised murder. I knew I had made a mortal enemy, but I didn't care. I feared no god. Why fear a sect elder? I became the sterling favorite. My father gave me the keys to the vault. I took healing supplies and retreated to the penance yard, claiming I needed to stabilize. In reality, I had work to do. I went to the crater where Julian died. I found a fragment of his storage ring in the dirt. Using a wisp of karma, I had snagged it during the explosion. Inside, amidst piles of golden pills, I found an old beast skin map. It pointed to a location in the Dead Man's Ridge called the Blade Crypt. Why would a Celestia disciple have a map to a secret spot near my family's land? I memorized the map and destroyed the fragment. Under cover of night, I left the estate. The mountains were dangerous, but I grafted fear onto any beast that approached, sending them running. 3 days later, I found the valley, hidden by miasma. It housed a massive tomb mound and a rusty bronze sword. The tombstone read, "Here lies the unfilial descendant, Silas Sterling." Silas, my ancestor, the mass murderer. Why was he here? History said he ascended to the heavens. I touched the sword. A storage bag hung from the hilt. Inside was a golden journal. Reading the first page hit me like lightning. I, Silas Sterling, have sinned against heaven and man. Yet I do not repent. The void entity descended, seeking to devour this world. I used a forbidden calculation and found only one way to stop it. A cage made of cause and effect, forged from 1,000,000 souls. I had no choice. Slaughter is a sin. But without it, the world would be a demon's feast. I became the anchor, dying here to maintain the seal. I pray a descendant comes to finish what I started. The journal dropped from my hands. It wasn't a curse. It was a sacrifice. My ancestor wasn't a monster. He was the jailer of the apocalypse. We treated his legacy as shame when it was salvation. I knelt and slammed my head into the dirt 3 times. Ancestor, I wronged you.